Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video we're going to do is we're going to go revisit our Express React Views project, and I just kind of want to just get a little bit more in depth about how to use functional and class components, okay, and just sort of the ins and outs of the different ways you can write a component. At the end of the day, you're going to end up in the same place, and you don't have to necessarily worry about state much, because again, we're not working with React right now, we're working with Express React Views. So technically all this code is rendered on the server side. So that technically there's no DOM updates that are being handled by this code, which is the reason why you would use something called state in normal React. So in that case, it's just really a matter of creating our HTML pages, just using sort of a React syntax or JSX. So let's head over to the screen. Let's kickstart our server. So let me just find where I got this. I think it's in, I put it under here, Express React, and then, yep, we have project 1. So let me open this folder in terminal. We'll update later. Cool. So now we're in here. I'm going to want to start off my server. Note I'm on server.js. Cool. And then that's doing that. So again, we have right now, if we go back to a server.js, we have one route for the root route that actually gets rendered by a view. Let's create another one. Okay, just to also get used to writing routes. So app.get / and then comma. Do our callback with request and response, and then we do this, and basically the deal is we're gonna response.render, and we'll render a page called other, as far as our other page. So we're going to make a file called other.jsx, and we'll just create an object, and we'll just say data, and then we'll have an array 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, 7. So again, we're going to render this page other. So we have to go into our views and make a file called other.jsx, new file, other.jsx, because Express is going to go into the backend and look for that file, or go into this views folder and look for that file. And then here we need to just do our normal boilerplate. So we need to create a variable called react that equals require react. Cool. And first we'll do the class component. Like, we've kind of done this before, but I want to do it again. Okay. And basically to create a class component, again, you just write a new class. So class other, and that class has to extend react.component. Okay. Now, if you want to clean up the syntax a little bit, so that way you don't have to type. Yeah, really, honestly, it's just easier to write component. But if you really wanted to, what you could do is do something like this. You could use destructuring. So instead of writing React, I would just write component, and that'll put component in its own variable. So then in that case, I only have to write this. Okay. You could do that. Okay. So just so you are aware. So in this case, basically the way a class component is going to work is the only thing you really need to define here is a render function that takes no parameters. Okay, and then that function then returns JSX. Okay, and you can return as much JSX as you want, and generally you'll return that within parentheses. So we'll say, and again, it has to have one parent element. So the easiest way to do that is just to to wrap everything in a fragment. So again, I can go back up here and destructure the fragment. So instead of doing react.fragment, I'll just destructure. I will just destructure fragment from React. Okay, cool. In that case, I can just do this. Fragment. And let's see here. What do I want to do here? Let's do an H1. This is my other page. H2. We were sent data. Data via props. Because again, when you're using Express React Views, the data you send here ends up being passed as props. Now in a class component, everything is a property of the class, so there's the whole this keyword. So if I just wanted to show the data, okay, so we'll say we'll just say div. Okay, and then we use curly brackets to denote that we want to put a variable in there. So I would just say this dot props, and then in that props object we should have a thing called data, because that's what we passed in. But the problem is data is an array, so it's not going to look just right, so let's just find out. So that was localhost 3000 / other. Okay, cannot get other. Let's find out why. Okay, the route. Oh, because I never actually wrote the word other here. Okay, I gotta put the route details in there. I just made it like a dual root route. That's not gonna help. Okay, so that's restarting the server. Let's try that again. Element type is invalid. Expected a string for composite but got object. Okay, so it's complaining about that data thing. Okay, which I kind of said that was going to happen. So what if I did want to show this whole array, this array of 1 through 7? Problem is, I have this. So since it's an array, what you do is if you want to, we need to break that data not into an array of data, but into an array of JSX. So arrays have built into them a function that allows you to create a new array. So that's called map. So this is generally how you would do this in React. Okay. Let's see here. So dot map, and then you put in a parentheses because we're doing the map function, and the map function takes a callback. So we're going to just pass in the value, and we're going to return some JSX. So we're going to put parentheses because that's just how JSX works. So we're returning this JSX, and we're going to return JSX where it's an H3, and inside the H3 is the current value that we're looping over. Okay. So essentially what this does is going to go over this array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each time return a JSX element that's just an H3 with the value in it, because that's what's here. So I hit save. Okay, and that just kind of structures it like that. And now if I refresh this, there we go. Wait, class but got object. You literally forgot to export your component from the file. Oh, okay. Nope, that was that. Here's the error. It went in the file, but it couldn't find the export. I had to do module.export. No, Control Z. Module.exports equals other. I have to export the component so that way it knows what it's looking for. So save. Okay, now I should be okay. React is not defined. Okay, so let's do this. I'll still bring in a variable called React. I'm pretty sure I can just do this as a comma like that, and that should still work. Let's give that a shot. Okay, unexpected token on 1 line 11. Okay, that's complaining about the comma. So here's what I will do. I will just actually just do this in 2 lines. Okay, I'll do that. And then I will just deconstruct component and fragment from the React object. Okay, there we go. Everybody wins that way. There we go. And there's that data array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. That's it. That's pretty much the deal. You can send data via props from the back end. You write your JSX like this. Again, easiest thing to do, just to not have to think about it, is just always just wrap it in a fragment. Now, if I wanted to do the same thing, but as a functional component, so I'll comment out this class component, it's almost going to be the same thing, except I would just do const other, because I'm going to write it as a function, equals props. It gets passed in as an argument into the function, so we have to write props as a parameter, and then the function just returns the JSX. So I can just copy the same JSX that I returned here. Okay, except I should comment that back or uncomment that. And the only thing I need to change here is get rid of this, because now that we're in a functional component, you don't need the this keyword because we're not talking about a class. So it's just props.data. Otherwise, same thing. Okay, and then I'll go back over here and refresh. And I get the same thing. So it's not like a huge difference between writing a functional component versus a class component. Just some syntax differences. Okay, so just so you can compare the difference for a moment. So class component. So the difference here is that you have to do a render function, and then the render function that returns your JSX. And again, you would use this when you're referring to props. Vice versa, in other, that would be here, which is just a function that returns JSX, and you don't need to use this in the props. So yeah, that's about it. Now, as far as styling goes, let's take a look. I mean, you can always do inline styles, and we'll come back and try that out in a second. But I wonder if there's any other styling recommendations as far as Express React views. So let's do a Google in the library. Express React views. And where would it let me include a CSS file? Where does my data come from? This props. Yep, we know that. View helpers. What about partials and includes? These don't really apply, but since they are familiar ideas. Okay, so I see how they're doing it. They are just using a component that represents the head. So let's try that out. So I will do this as a separate video, and we'll talk about styling. But first I'll just show you guys how to do inline styling. So if you wanted to do inline styling in React, it's a little bit weird. Basically the way you would do that is you would create a style property, like if you were doing inline styles in HTML, except instead of passing like a CSS string, what you do is you pass it an object. And the object, let's say I want to change the color property, I would change the color to orange, and then this would change that H1 to orange. Okay, then why does that give me a little squiggly line there? Oh, I need 2 curly brackets because I need to pass in an object, but I need the first curly brackets to show that I'm interpolating. So that's what that would look like. Okay, because again, you need to use the curly brackets to show that you're outside of JSX and going back to JavaScript, and then you're passing in a JavaScript object with all your CSS properties and values. So I hit save. Wait a second, I think both of these are not. I need to comment out the other one. So I'll comment out the function for the moment, because I can't have the same component twice. Give that a moment to reload. And there you go, see, the inline style works. So I can do that. I can just do everything in inline styles, which is one of the ways you may do it in like front-end React. since it's a backend React, we have some other options, and I will show you guys in the next